Hey, historians. Um, Mia, what are you driving? Is that a spaceship? This is the 1950s unit. We haven't even made it to the moon yet. Oh, it's a time machine. Wait, where are we going? Mia? Whoa! That was a crazy ride. We must be in the 1950s. Mia's time machine transformed into a super cool convertible. Perfect. Because Mia's gonna take us on a road trip through the 50s to show us what American culture and counterculture was like in this decade. A counterculture is created when people rebel against the mainstream beliefs and values in society. And in the 50s, there were clear expectations about how people should think and behave. And a lot of rebellion against those expectations. Mia needs you to help us navigate on this road trip. Mia, you know I can read a map, right? Okay, fine, we'll let them do it. In the PDF, you'll find a roadmap that includes all of the stops on our trip. As we go from place to place, help Mia fill out the postcards from each destination. At each stop, we'll look at one expectation or value of mainstream culture in the 1950s, and an example of how people rebelled against those values and expectations. Okay, let's hit the road. Wait, does this thing even have gas? Whoa! Our first stop is this awesome drive-in movie theater. Wow, it's really busy. Seems like everyone in the 50s has a car. While Mia watches a 50s film, let's talk about our first 1950s mainstream value, consumerism. The post-war economy and mass advertising led to a surge in consumer culture. Having things like cars, televisions, and household appliances became the new American dream. Good consumers were considered good citizens because they were helping the economy recover after decades of economic depression and war. Contributing to the consumer economy was an expectation of the 50s. This consumerism craze led to widespread materialism. Materialism is the belief that the most important things in life are the things you can buy, like clothes and cars. It's the idea that these things bring happiness and success and are more valuable than non-material things like love, kindness, or personal growth. But not everyone appreciated the consumer culture of the 50s. The Beatniks were members of a counterculture movement in the 1950s who rejected materialism and rebelled against consumer culture in their art and literature. They thought mainstream society was too obsessed with material possessions. For the Beatniks, consumer culture opposed the free, spontaneous, and authentic life they aspired to live. They were like the hipsters of the 50s. Think about consumerism today and consider this question. What would bring you more joy? Buying the coolest new phone or spending a day making memories with your family? If you said a new phone, you'd probably agree with consumerism. If you said time with your family, you'd probably agree with the Beatniks. Alright, Mia, let's continue this road trip. Next stop, Levittown. Here we are in Levittown, an American suburb, and our next stop in our road trip, where we'll get to see the family values and traditional gender roles that people were expected to follow in the 50s. As we've learned in previous lessons, suburban life was a big part of 50s culture. Houses in these suburbs, like these in Levittown, often looked exactly alike, showcasing a desire for conformity. Conformity is when you act or think like everyone else because it's what's expected or accepted by the group. Have you ever done something just because everyone else was doing it or because you wanted to fit in? Well, in the 1950s, almost everyone would probably answer yes to this question. The stereotypical suburban family was the nuclear family, which consisted of a working father, a stay-at-home mother, and a few children. In these families, women were expected to find fulfillment in their roles as wives, mothers, and homemakers. The media and television shows like Father Knows Best promoted the idea that men were the ultimate authority figure in the household, and that women's primary role and source of happiness should be in homemaking. But not everyone agreed with these gender roles and family expectations. The Feminine Mystique, written by Betty Friedan, criticized these expectations for women. Friedan argued that middle-class suburban housewives who, despite having material comfort and seemingly perfect lives, were often unhappy. The Feminine Mystique was a call to action. Friedan encouraged women to seek new opportunities outside of the home, pursue education, voice their political opinions, and enter the workforce. The book played a crucial role in igniting the feminist movements of the 1960s and 70s. While it faced criticism and was, in many ways, centered on the experiences of white middle-class women, its impact on the broader movement for women's rights was profound. Here we are at our next stop, a 1950s school. Just like those rows of identical houses in Levittown, schools in the 1950s had strict rules and expectations that teenagers and young Americans were expected to follow, and, you guessed it, there was a lot of rebellion against those rules. Hey, you're a teenager, right? Have you ever done anything rebellious that was considered going against the norm? Well, teens in the 1950s were expected to follow rules about how they should behave, how they should dress, and even the kinds of music they listened to. They were expected to be clean-cut and obedient. Yet, not everyone followed the status quo. Enter the Greasers, a youth subculture that rebelled against the conformity of the 50s. They represented a new generation of teenagers and young adults who were not always content with mainstream values. They had their own voice, their own style, and their own music. Drawing inspiration from popular films like Rebel Without a Cause and icons like James Dean, they wore leather jackets, slicked back their hair, and listened to a new genre of music, rock and roll. While mainstream society saw them as rebellious delinquents, the Greasers desired independence, freedom, and a break from stifling societal expectations. By the 60s and 70s, as some of these rebellious teens went to college and eventually became adults, they would ignite many of the social and political changes that we'll learn about in later units.
Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right for you. That's all right, Mama.
Oh, cool. We're at our final stop in this road trip, a 1950s concert. Mia, I wonder who's performing today. Before we find out, let's talk a little bit about music in the 1950s. In the 1950s, Jim Crow laws legalized segregation in the South. But even in places without these laws, discrimination still happened due to individual prejudices. Well, as television shows like The Ed Sullivan Show began showcasing the talent of black musicians, black music became popular among young white audiences. Older generations feared this would lead to racial integration because it would encourage interactions between different races. The emerging genre of rock and roll, deeply influenced by black artists, became the soundtrack for a new generation of rebellious youth who went against the established racial norms of the era. Enter Elvis Presley. A young white musician from Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis defied racial norms by blending black and white music genres and recording songs originally performed by black artists. Elvis often spoke about his admiration for black musicians and the impact they had on his style. While this might seem normal today, he faced a lot of backlash. Older generations with traditional values often viewed Elvis as a bad influence. He was seen as a rebel influencing the youth to be more open to black culture. Also, some black Americans criticized Elvis for making money on songs originally recorded by black artists. His song Hound Dog, for example, had been performed by black artists like Big Mama Thornton for decades. Some felt that Elvis was undeservedly crowned the king of a genre that black musicians had pioneered. Though he faced criticisms, Elvis became very popular among both black and white young Americans. His popularity played a role in bringing the sounds of black America to a broader audience. The blending of black and white music in rock and roll foreshadowed the broader civil rights movements and cultural shifts of the 1960s. Wow, Mia, that was an awesome road trip. I can't believe we got to meet Elvis. As we step out of our time machine, the legacy of 50s counterculture echoes all around us. Those rebels and rule breakers helped start the drive toward real change that would happen in the 60s and 70s and even shape the culture that we all experience today. They inspire us to question and challenge the status quo. As we shape our own era, let's channel the daring 50s spirit and keep making history.
Hey, hey!